Hello, my name is Alex Angle, and my wife and I, Laura, are from Richmond, Virginia. I've got a background in technology sales. My wife was an educator. She got her undergrad and her master's from the University of Virginia, and I went to school at the College of William and Mary. We're now full-time entrepreneurs and Amway IBOs, and I'm really excited today to interview a good friend of mine from Chicago, Mr. Derek Kosek. And Derek, you have a much different background than I have, and let's talk about when you first got started in business for yourself. What were you doing? What was your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background, I was actually training with the Chicago Fire Pro Soccer team while I was in my last semester at the University of Illinois at Chicago. I was actually finishing my degree in elementary education, and I was traveling the country from Chicago to Florida to California, going back and forth training and finishing my assignments while I was on the road. As I started in business, I decided to put soccer on the back burner and found a job in corporate recruiting and pursue this business.
So, Derek, that great background, totally different than mine. We come from different worlds, different walks of life. But based on what you want to achieve in life, what was it about network marketing that was attractive to you?
Hey, great question. For me, I didn't know what network marketing was. To me, it was just a logical business. All legit businesses, they take work to grow and maintain, but it just seemed logical to me. I like the fact that Amway provided so much. It had such a strong history, a strong Better Business Bureau rating, and it just had a lot of longevity. I mean, it just was a pretty straightforward business. I also looked at other businesses, and they all had products or services they were moving, and this was no different. So to me, it just made a ton of sense.
That's great. And maybe you're like me too, that I'm not sure. I don't think you come from a family of entrepreneurs, do you?
Nope. Not at all.
My dad was a coal miner down in southwestern Virginia. My mom was a school teacher.
Yep.
And so when I initially started working with Amway, they had some questions and concerns. They weren't, because they just didn't know this style of business. But how about you? What'd your family think when you first told them you were doing this?
No, great question. So my parents are both teachers and much more traditional.
Right.
They weren't business people. I didn't grow up around people that own businesses really. Everybody around me kind of did the traditional job situation. And so I was doing what they wanted me to do. I was going to school. I was in the process of finishing that up, getting that corporate job, but I was also starting to think about what I could do more. And so while they didn't necessarily understand or maybe approve of what I was doing, I also realized that the world was changing and I needed to make money in different ways. And so this business just made a lot of sense to me. And through time, they tried a couple products and, sometimes they bought a little, sometimes they didn't. Over time, they grew more and more supportive and more excited about what I was doing. So they weren't necessarily jumping up and down, but they kind of in time gained some support.
That makes sense, because this wasn't their initial plan for you.
Nope.
This wasn't, as you guys talked about your future, they didn't even know this probably existed.
Nope.
For something you could do in the future for another additional income source. But what about all your friends? Because you played professional soccer. Yep. You probably had a huge network of friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell you from my perspective, my friends, some were extremely supportive and some thought I'd lost my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, how about you? What was your experience?
No, very similar. So I had a couple of friends that saw what I saw and got involved in the business with me. I had a few of them that just liked the products, but I did have one or two that had some skepticism or some concerns about whether I could do it. Coming from a sports background and a teaching background, I didn't necessarily have your traditional business pedigree, I guess you could say.
Right.
And so they were a little concerned that I could do it. They were a little concerned that it was even legit. But I just chose to kind of trust my instincts and trust my gut. And I realized, we didn't all have the same majors in school. We didn't have all the same paths in life. And so while we were friends, they were going into accounting or other, areas of expertise. And so if I thought this was a good idea, they didn't have to necessarily jump on board. They didn't necessarily have to understand it, but I could still pursue it.
Okay, that totally makes sense. And so, Derek, I think the nature of this type of business is sometimes goal setting is hard. And it's hard to figure out, okay, next month, will I be at this level or that level? And so I know along the way for me, we had some disappointments. We had some setbacks.
Yep.
And I'm sure you probably had some of the same. And so during those times, what did you do to stay strong? What did you lean on?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things that helped me a lot, Alex, was the fact that, I had a coach in business that I could kind of look to. They had results. They had sort of been through the business minefield, if you will. They had run into a lot of the same things I was had run into, was going to run into. Yeah. And so if I didn't necessarily always see the path through, it was nice having people that had already gone through it and could kind of turn around and help me through it. And so I really like the fact that I had that to lean on. And also I did lean a little bit on my experience in soccer. There were many times where I wanted to, start as a freshman or be at a higher level in sports. And I just had to keep working at it over time to be able to get where I wanted to go. And so I figured business would work very similarly. Anything you're going to be successful in, it takes consistency, it takes endurance, it takes continued effort. And so I just figured the business would be very similar.
So success in everything is hard. Mm-hmm. I know we played basketball together, so I know you're a naturally gifted athlete. I mean, I'm just the guy in the corner shooting 3-pointers. Yeah. You're actually
quite a few though.
Yeah, I know, but you're actually you're actually athletic. And so, but even with that, you learn those success principles because nothing good comes easy, and you had to work hard to be a success in that, and you've worked really hard in this as well. The next question I have is based on time, because you're a busy professional.
Yes.
You got done with doing soccer. Now you're in a recruiting firm, correct?
Yes.
And I know how the hours are when you're working at those places. They want you to work forever. Sometimes it seems
as much as you can.
As much as you can.
Absolutely.
And so how did you manage that? What did you give me some tips?
Yeah, so I mean, when I first started, quite honestly, I was still, like, as I mentioned, I was actually traveling around the country. So I was literally getting my business set up, and I was in a different state. As I already mentioned, I had teachers that wanted my papers handed in and tests I was taking on the road and things like that while playing a pro level sport and competing at a pro level. And so I had a lot to navigate there. When I was home, I was interviewing for jobs as kind of the backup plan. And I was dating my now wife. And so, I'm 23. I like to have some fun. So there's a lot going on.
Right.
But I really looked at it, and pretty soon after I kind of realized like sports wasn't going to necessarily be the ticket I wanted it to be. So I ended up getting that corporate job, but I was putting in 50, 55 hours a week. After 5, they wanted me to take calls with clients and potential candidates and things. And so there were many times where I just had to prioritize. And I did the same thing in sports. I said, hey, if I want to play at a higher level, where do I need to carve out time to get better? And so I really just started utilizing my time better, differently than a lot of my friends. After 5, most of them were going to the gym or doing whatever they wanted. I just chose to carve out some time each week and put it into my business. And over time, it built up and got bigger and stronger.
That's great. That's really, really good. Because everyone has 24 hours in the day.
Correct.
It's not, you don't have more time than me. It's about what we do with that time that we have.
Absolutely.
And so you've been a part of the Amway business for a number of years now, I think since 2007, right?
Correct.
So maybe, what is that, 16 years. And so if Derek Kosek from 2007 could get started in this business right now today, and by the way, I'll get you started, but if Derek Kosek could get started right now in this business today, what would you do differently?
Yeah. Another great question, Alex. You're sending the zingers today. But I think for me, as I look back at my career in business, I wouldn't change too much. Of course, most winners want things to happen faster. I think that's normal. But to not go through some of those learning experiences and times where things weren't moving the way I wanted, I wouldn't have learned so many important lessons. I think we sometimes forget that if we're not good at something, that's an opportunity to learn. You can win or you can learn. And so when I wasn't winning, I just really learned a lot. I learned how to develop a team. I learned how to develop customers. And for me, I wouldn't really change much because even though I didn't always grow as quickly as I wanted, the lessons I learned along the way, I still use today. Those skill sets I developed along the way are still valuable today.
So looking back on it, you can see that. But at the time, as you're learning these skill sets, it could be relatively frustrating because you have a goal or an end in mind. But looking back, it's kind of nice to say, gosh, during that time where I felt like I wasn't succeeding, actually, that's when I learned how to be successful 100%. As I was going through. That is good stuff.
Yeah, we all say, right, hindsight is 20/20. The problem is looking forward is not, right? And so it's not always easy to kind of trust the path you're on, but when you do, it usually get where you want to go.
Amen. So Derek, I've got one last question for you. And I think this is probably a common question when you talk to people that have been a part of this type of business, a network marketing style business, is, in your opinion, based on what you've seen over the years, why do some people make it and some people don't?
Yeah, I think for many people, they understand that there's no such thing as an overnight success. But quite honestly, then, in a couple weeks or a couple months, they kind of want it to be overnight success, right?
So
it's
true.
like,
that is so
where's
true.
my thousands and thousands of dollars? And anything worth doing takes consistency, right? It's sort of that, in sports, right? I just go back to the fact that any skill I was developing, any level I went to in business, it took time to get good at it, that. And I think fear of not being good at it day one, not having the skill sets. I know for me personally, I didn't know how to create customers. I had never really sold or marketed a product in my life. I didn't go to school for business. And so there's sort of that like fear of like, I haven't done this before, or I didn't go to school necessarily for this particular background. Now, some people may have, but I didn't. And so I kind of see that a lot with people. They kind of get caught in that fear of what other people think. Are they going to like the products? Can I do this? And quite honestly, with some education, I think anybody can. I think if you plug into the trainings and you work with your coach, I think you can learn the skills you need to succeed in business. And so that, coupled with a little bit of a longer term perspective, not looking for it to be overnight success, realizing that it may take a few months or even a year or two to really get good at it, that's okay.
Yep.
And it's up to you how hard you work and how quickly you want to accomplish things. But I think just understanding it's not going to be overnight success is probably one of the biggest things that slows people down.
That makes total sense, because the concept is you are in business for yourself, but you're not by yourself.
Correct.
Because you have somebody else that has more experience than you have. So as you're going through this, they can sort of take you through the minefield of business success and help you out with that. So, well, Derek, I appreciate the time. I really think this interview can help out some people that are really, they're not even Amway business owners yet. They're just really checking things out to see if, hey, is this going to be a good fit for what they want to create? Yeah. So I appreciate your time and have a great day.
Thanks for the opportunity.
For existing IBOs only, not for use with prospects. The success depicted in this profile may reflect income from sources other than Amway, such as earnings from the sale of training and education materials or other businesses and investments. While the techniques and approaches suggested have worked for others, no one can guarantee that these techniques and approaches will work for you. In addition, we want to emphasize that success in this business does not come without hard work.